Well, I was expecting a change blog of some kind leading up to the Black Ops 6 launch, but certainly wasn't expecting it a full month out from then. Today, Treyarch laid out and detailed a few of the changes coming for Black Ops 6's launch compared to what we saw in the beta. And don't worry, it's not just a small list of like 4 to 5 things coming as a preview of a larger blog upcoming. There's actually a lot to go over here. So drop your thoughts on these changes, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you're new. We're chasing down 600,000 subscribers, and it's a mega lofty goal, but I'd love to see if we could get close to that or even hit it by the launch next month. We're ways off still, but we closed a larger gap with Modern Warfare 2's launch, so I think it's possible. So if you're a part of that nearly 75% of viewers not subscribed, I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, this video is brought to you in part by Factor, but more on them in a bit. For now, let's get into these changes coming at launch for Black Ops 6. First, more map reveals. That's not necessarily like gameplay changes, but it was something clarified at the beginning of this change blog that Treyarch put out. We saw a tweet from Treyarch recently in an accompanying fly-through video of most of the maps, but now we have all of attack maps readily available for us on all of the launch maps in the game. On screen, you'll see a bit of what was introduced today, but we also heard directly about the previously controversial map sizing, where Treyarch detailed the sizing of each map in that tweet with the initial fly-through. They also clarified a bit in the blog post a little further, saying map size and game flow are critically important to us, and we look forward to seeing you all jump into all 16 brand new maps at launch, with many more to follow in our live seasons. We're also evaluating some changes to cover placement across multiple maps, including some of the beta maps, which we'll be able to share more details on closer to launch. Beyond that, we ended up learning some general updates for some gameplay related items like spawns and overall performance of the game itself. Now, these are general updates because you can't really get too specific on these topics for a various number of reasons, but they detailed for spawns as a key companion to maps, we want to update you on the spawn system. One of the most important reasons we have a public beta is gathering spawn data from our players. Now that we have 2 weeks worth of player data, we've already made big strides in dialing in the spawn logic and identifying and resolving issues within the spawn system across the game for launch. Players may have noticed improvements to spawn logic throughout weekend 2 of the beta, and as new content comes into the game and we generate even more spawn data, we're always assessing our spawn systems and will continue to make necessary updates to it through launch and beyond. That's great to hear because obviously weekend 1 of the beta was for sure plagued with bad spawns. Weekend 2, I do agree, did have some better spawns, but we also saw maps like Babylon introduced, where a good spawn is almost impossible based off the map sizing and the pacing of the gameplay itself. So we'll see how that all translates into the overall experience, but for right now, it seems like a promising update. Performance-wise, they detailed our beta was immensely helpful in identifying and resolving some performance-related issues. Over the course of the beta, we identified several areas that were impacting in-game performance. Some areas where we've made progress on performance include resolving general script errors, addressing issues relating to our in-game interface, as well as the overall improvements and fixes to our asset streaming. A smooth game performance is paramount to the player experience, and we've been able to chase down sources of in-game hitching and deploy major fixes since the close of the beta. We will continue working with our experts across all disciplines to improve overall performance for launch and into the live seasons. That's great to hear because hitching absolutely was something that I had seen a lot of on console play. Personally, I didn't experience a whole ton on PC, but it was absolutely something that I've watched plenty of gameplay where that was an issue. So nice to see for sure. Before we continue, today's video is brought to you in part by Factor, who brings you fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. This time of year is always the busiest time for me, whether it be between wrapping up any final summer plans to prepping to lock myself away for the grind of a new COD launch and to get all that content ready to go. Frankly, some days I just forget that I should be eating because there's so much on my mind. That's where Factor comes in clutch. Factor takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success. You can skip the grocery stores, prep work, and that feeling of, man, I just really don't feel like cooking. Instead, you can get chef-crafted meals delivered right to your door, and there's over 25 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and even more. When things get hectic, Factor is flexible. You can change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or even reschedule your deliveries at any time. We've worked with Factor here a couple of times on the channel, and I can't recommend them enough. And again, they really do help out with a new game launch crunch and really just any situation you may be short on time. So if you're like me and are interested in learning more or picking up your first box, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code espresso50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code espresso50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. And thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. Let's talk more specific things, because they did, for the rest of this blog, progressively get more and more specific with the items that are upcoming for launch. Headshot damage, they detailed a common piece of feedback we saw was low headshot damage reduced the impact of skillful play and made it difficult to challenge certain power positions. We agree with these points and are working to adjust the many weapons to reward players who land multiple headshots during an engagement. So improvements are coming, but nothing to overly kill that time to kill and make it unbearable, where it's just impossible to play because you're dying super quick. Bullet penetration, they're going to be lowering the power of the rounds as they pass through an intended surface, and there's a detailed section called More to Come, where they detailed there's improvements to fluidity of sniper ADS, improvements to the fluidity when swapping weapons during tactical sprint and regular sprint, reduction of weapon motion during crouch transitions, and a small lift to shotguns and targeting adjustments across all weapons to keep SMGs from overperforming relative to other classes. Looking at you, Jackal PDW, but weapon balancing coming no less. Then we learned a bit about movement changes, where they said they're dialing in some additional updates to improve fluidity and allow players to tune their sprint behavior to their individual playstyle. But they talked more so about the improvements or continued improvements to the animation and fluidity throughout all types of sprint. There's adjustments for slide to improve predictability and fluidity, and intelligent movement updates are indeed coming as well. But again, while that's targeting areas, it's not exactly specific changes or things that are a lot more detailed about certain aspects. That's where they get down to more nitty-gritty stuff, where they talked about things like the winner circle. That's going to have a shortened overall duration of the winner circle, and to reduce emote spam, players in the winner circle can now only activate one emote. They simplified that emote menu to make it easier to activate, and there's going to be improvements to the fidelity and lighting on various different maps in that winner circle. One thing that I'm personally very excited for here, and I've said I've loved in every COD game that has had it, they're going to be adding a kill counter to your HUD that will track your progress towards kills and one life medals, including those who are chasing the nuclear medal or the nuke score streak. So you'll be able to see what number of that streak you're on specifically. No more guessing or trying to keep an eye out for whatever medal is the next one up, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, or so on. You're now also going to have a reduction in the overall camera motion on sprint, tack, sprint, and slide, which is definitely nice. For people quick to motion sickness, this was something that may have been an issue within the beta. The kill order mode in particular is going to increase the kills as the HVT team score to 3. I think it was 2 before, and they're also going to reduce the HVT survival score to 20. The score limit overall is going to be raised to 150, and the HVT will no longer drop their pistol when they are eliminated. There's finally improved notifications when the player is selected as the HVT as well. The Sleeper Agent field upgrade is going to remove the time added when earning eliminations while Sleeper Agent is active, so it appears that that's now going to be just simply a one and done use. Unlike now Dead Silence in prior years, getting kills isn't going to add to the time that you are undercover and playing as an enemy operative at that point. So I think it's a nice compromise. It's a very powerful field upgrade, but at the same time, it shouldn't be something that is entirely just useless. Now, after this update, there's still benefits, but not a sort of overpowered feeling to it. Equipment, the stim shot, a great change here for this is that by default, it's changed to a cooldown based piece of equipment rather than inventory based. So for what I mean by that is you had 2 by default if you had this selected, and then you could of course get more if you had an ammo pack or something like that. But instead of this now only being a finite number of 2 before you have to refill, it's now going to be on a cooldown. So you can use 1 and then it will automatically replenish like you would if you had like restock in years prior. So that's definitely nice. The Quartermaster Strategist perk will decrease that cooldown time even further, and there's a resolved issue where the combat axe would not deal lethal damage at a round start. So those cross map clips you saw where people were getting hit markers, that's not going to be a case anymore. That's actually going to deal that lethal damage, which is definitely nice and how it should be. Perks, they ended up saying after assessing perk data from our time in the beta, they made a few changes to Assassin, Bruiser, Dexterity, and Gung Ho. So Assassin and Bruiser are going to be moved from perk 1 to perk 2. Dexterity and Gung Ho are going to be moved from perk 2 to perk 1. So swapping those 2 placements of those 2 perks in hopefully a way to better combat any sort of crutch perks, but also then making the pick list a bit more competitive for what you have in perk 1 and perk 2s. And finally, the RCXD controls were updated to make them a little bit easier to manage. A lot of people did say in the beta that that was something that it seemed a little too tough to control by comparison to other prior RCXDs, but still, grand scheme of things, not a huge change per se. I didn't really touch the RCXD at all during the beta. I don't know that I will during the regular game, so if you don't play with the RCXD at all, it's not really a change that is consequential to you. But Anyways, that is the changes that were already detailed here for Black Ops 6 well ahead of the launch. Again, we are a month and a day away from the game launching, which is pretty cool to see that we already know of this many changes right up front. Now, they did detail there's going to be a lot more in regards to talks about performance, talks about weapon balancing, talks about further changes that will be coming over the course of the next few weeks here leading to launch. So we very well may get a much larger, much more in-depth look at all these changes coming for Black Ops 6 and the launch compared to what we had at the beta. But for right now, I think this is a solid start. I do like just about everything on this list here that was detailed from Treyarch. So that is where we're going to wrap it up. Just want to fill you guys in on what is already revealed for these changes coming at launch and what you can expect. So let me know your thoughts down below. Is there anything in particular you guys find is a really good change here coming out of the beta into launch? Something you don't really agree with? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. Of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Again, chasing down 600,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you in the community. If you'd like to stay up to date with all things Black Ops 6 and other FPS content, more than welcome to join the community. I'd love to have you. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.